Okay, so here we are now with the next exercise. We've so far done the squat, we've done the bench press, and we've done the deadlift and the variations that are possible with it, right? Now we're going to do another exercise which is pretty effective. A compound movement, works a lot of muscles together. This is the bent over barbell row. As the name suggests, you bend over and it's rowing, but done with a barbell. Same principle like how we've done in the other exercises, especially the bench press. You retract your shoulder blades. So if I have to show you from here, if we did this, and in the bench press we did this movement, it's exactly same in the row. You turn around, you grab the barbell and you bring it down, and this. So movement is the same. There it's more shoulder flexion that was happening, right, with some amount of horizontal adduction. Here we are looking at something where we're pulling. It's more extension that's happening and retraction behind, and the load is ahead. So how to do it? Firstly, the aim for us, and I'll show you the incorrect method as well which people do. First thing is engage your core, okay. You bend down, make sure you're parallel to the floor when you're down. So your hip, shoulder, head is in one line. The bar comes into your hands, okay. And from here, you retract your shoulder blades, pull in and back again. Retract your shoulder blades, pull in. Now this has to happen in one go. 1, 2, all right. Now, what are the mistakes that are made by a lot of people? Most basic, which is in fact not the most safest, is to stay rounded. Okay, so people end up, even if they go down, they round their back and do this. The other mistake is to lock the knees, okay, and then to do, right. One more mistake would be not going deep enough for you to get enough range. So you see, if you're around parallel here, check the range that you get from here. If you check your elbow, how much does your elbow travel, right? And see what happens if I come here. How much does my elbow travel? Only this much, okay, from here to here. So you want range, you want this extra range from here. This is around 45. You want around 90. Make sure your body is in this position. This will also engage your lower back muscles to keep you static. It will also stretch the hamstrings while being static with load. That's a great combination, especially for movements which are down, okay. So variations of this are about the barbell grip. It can be wide, it can be medium, it can be narrow, okay. It will affect slightly different muscle fibers. The contractions behind will depend on this. A variation of this now would be with dumbbells, okay. And obviously with dumbbells, if you see, what happens here is that these dumbbells can be used the same way. Only difference, I can use a neutral grip in it as I do. So if I'm here, I can start with an overhand grip, okay, and then I get into a neutral, back, neutral, back, okay. So that's the variation. I can use various movements. It can come completely into an underhand grip and go into neutral to overhand. So this becomes the beauty of using dumbbells. You can use various movements. You can do single arm. Okay, single arm, obviously when you do, the other side has to stabilize to do the movement. So if you check, if I'm in this position and it's one dumbbell at a time, I can keep this hand on my hip, 1 here, 2, back, okay. When I'm done, other side, 1, 2. Now the trick, if you're doing single arm, is making sure that you don't twist, okay. This happening doesn't really engage your retractors as much. You'd be using a lot of your hip as well. You don't want this happening, okay. If you're doing it, do it strict so that the movement gives you the best that you could need. Now we move to the next exercise, which is the shoulder press, sometimes also called the military press if it's done with a barbell and in front. Now again, a great exercise, very commonly used, good if when you want to strengthen your deltoids to produce power in overhead serves, smashes, a lot of movements where the arms travel up, okay. So this movement, you do need some decent amount of thoracic mobility so that you're able to go up, okay. This exercise in itself builds that too, obviously with resistance. So let me show you the technique for that. So let's assume here we are, okay, with the bar comes here. Ideally, the elbows are under your shoulders. You don't want this happening too much, okay. If it's too heavy, you'll be forced to do this. So that's where the correct weight is important. So here, from here, neutral pelvis, engage your glutes core, up, down, up, down, up, down. Now what you don't want to do, you don't want to hyperextend here. You don't want to push your bum back. If it's extremely heavy, you're doing weightlifting, this is not an option. They have to do this, but that's because they want to lift the maximum weight. You don't want to lift the maximum weight. You want to make sure that the weight is such that your body can still control. So tail in, tight, down, up, what not to do in this, one is extending too much, secondly pushing it too far forward. You don't want this happening. Unnecessary load on the shoulder girdle, okay, especially the shoulder capsule. There's enough ligaments there which you don't want to strain. End of it all, as the lectures have been saying, okay, you want to be safe. You want to use this to improve your technical performance. So like I've said earlier, no ego lifting. Now coming to dumbbells with the same lift, okay, a variation, and by now you would have understood what are the advantages, what are the variations you can do. The dumbbells allow you to move your arms through different ranges, okay. You can be completely out if you want to work on your medial deltoid, okay, up, down. If you look at the movement here, what's happening? At the shoulder joint, it's abduction, adduction. What happens if I'm here? Think about it. Up and down. What's happening with my elbow joint? Okay, it's shoulder flexion, extension, flexion, okay, extension. Think about it. Okay, these are things you need to know. When the arm's going up, what's happening for the anterior deltoid. Then comes next, which is here. Okay, 45 degrees. You get a bit of activation both in the medial and the anterior delt. Okay, up, down. So you can mix this up by doing something what is also sometimes called the Arnold press, where you face the palms towards you, underhand grip, go midway turn, out, in, out, in, out, in. Okay. Occasionally people do this exercise a bit wrong, I would say. From here, they would go out and then push. That going out needs to happen on the way and down. Okay. Advantage of this exercise again, the fact that you're able to turn mimics a punch action. Okay, for karate, even for boxing, that end corkscrew effect from here, this, okay. So that action. Not that the barbell won't help you do that, that will also build, but this just makes it almost mimicking exactly the action that you want to do. Okay. So advantages, by now you're very clear. What is it with barbells? What is it with dumbbells? Now we come to a very common exercise used for building your flexor strength, biceps, okay, done with a bar as well as done with dumbbells as well. Very common exercise. Sometimes people assume you don't need to do too much of this because you're not trying to build muscles. Okay, whether you're trying to build muscles or not, this is an action which you have to do to build bicep strength. How is it done? If it's with a straight bar, I'll show you that. But in an ideal world, if you're doing this, I would rather use a what's called an easy bar or EZ bar. Okay. Why is this called an easy bar? Because of the angle here. Okay. When you hold this with this angle, the wrists are in a much more comfortable position to go up and down. Okay. Versus you holding a bar and doing it with a straight arm so that the wrist doesn't get this strain. You can pull it much more easier if it's somewhere in between your pronation and supination. Okay. So this is a bar that can be used from here, one up, down, one up, down. One common thing you'll notice as I've done this, what is it? My elbow stays down so that as the wrist comes up, I get maximum range possible throughout. Okay. What am I not doing and what is it that I should not be doing? I should not be getting my elbows in front because the range goes down. One, range goes down. Second, as the arm comes forward, it is my anterior deltoid that is assisting to get the bar up. So if I come from here and do this, there's a lot more anterior deltoid work. So let me show you this. From here, as you do, if my elbows come here, Okay. This range from here to here is actually my anterior deltoid. So I'm losing a lot of the range which is at the bottom here. Okay. It's almost like if I extend my arm, this to this is lost. Okay. It's almost like from here, if you check, I'm bending and going here. Okay. In that whole swinging, you're losing tension on the muscle. So make sure your elbows are by your side, anchored there, shoulder blades back. If you check, glutes active, core active, push into the ground. Okay. So important part here, make sure that as you're doing this, whatever weight, it could be an empty bar, it could be 3 kilos, it could be 10 kilos, whatever. If you're not engaging and getting everything in it, okay, it's almost like throwing a punch which is just with the shoulders. If you're throwing a punch, you don't want this happening, right? Only shoulders dropping the punch. You want every punch to be coming from the whole body. And any boxer, any martial artist will always tell you that a punch comes from everything. It comes from your feet, the force travels and reaches, connects. Same goes with the punch which comes from behind, right? If it's a straight left, same thing. It comes from here, originates the power, transfers through the core, boom, boom. You want that whole body coming in. So when you lift weights, make sure that you're getting everything into it. It's not just about, you know, getting your arms to move and probably doing dumbbells like this. You see sometimes, you know, people standing, even athletes, talking and maybe just doing this. Now, is this really engaging the whole body? Answer you should know by now, right? So now to give an example of a heavier bar, if I'm doing it, this is heavy, you know, it's pretty 20 kilos, pretty heavy for doing a bicep curl, but just to show how engaging can make it easier and not engaging your core can make it difficult. So here I am, okay, if I'm doing this lift, neutral pelvis, glutes tight, dig your heels in, shoulder blades tight, abs tight, go. Everything in there. Whole body is involved. I dig in, okay, that's the lift. Now if I do it loose, check what happens. I just stand here. Firstly, I feel it a lot more in the elbows where the insertion is of the bicep tendon. I might also have to swing, okay. So let's not focus too much on what's wrong about this. Now let's move to dumbbells, bicep curl, okay, using dumbbells. By now again you know what are the advantages, okay. We're looking at using dumbbells. What are the advantages? One, you can change the grips, right? One, down. Two, down. What is the other advantage you can have of dumbbells? You can go 1, 2. Now, one maybe small tip I can give you, okay, to improve coordination, especially unilateral. What you could do is you could work when something goes eccentric with one arm, get into the concentric action from the other arm, okay, for coordination and your core to be active in that. So if you're going up, don't let this come down and then start this. Let there be coordination. So it's 1, up, as this goes down, this comes up, and so on and so forth. Now what happens there? As you do this, we spoke about this in the unilateral actions for something like say badminton, where one arm stabilizes, other arm comes in, goes up, boom, you hit a smash, right? So this coordination between the two limbs, upper limbs, it gets enhanced when you practice like this. The same can be applied for shoulder presses. Just to show you an example of the same pattern, if I'm doing shoulder presses, one action is of course to do it together, right? Second would be from here. If I'm doing this movement, the other option would be one up and I control, control, control. I could do it slower as well, but together. So now there's constant coordination between the two arms and between my scapulae as well, because as this is coming, the other one has to be used to coordinate and balance. These are small tricks of the trade which can actually make a difference to your training program depending on what you want to create. But yes, so far you've got all these moves. Let's move on now next to triceps. Okay, so you've got the basic moves of doing with barbells. So maybe one move which again helps in extension for the elbow. We've done flexion. Let's look at extension. Can be done with a barbell. You can do it lying down. You can also do it standing. I'm going to show a simpler version which is standing. Okay. So if there's a dumbbell here, you hold up, okay, and the trick here is to make sure that the elbow, wrist and shoulder is in one line. From here you come down approximately just below parallel, okay, with your forearm and up. 1 and 2. 1 and 2. Now here with the other one, okay, you hold, nice firm grip, up, from here down and back, down and back, down and back. Now this action, why do you want it coming just below parallel? Because you want to cross the point where there's maximum load, okay. So you want to be down, you cross the point where you feel the most load, go up, up, less load here, right. So load, 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 outer range, inner range you come, back again. How this helps is for sports again which are overhead. From here you will obviously not connect here, but somebody who's getting into a badminton stroke, overhead right here and hitting a shot, this is where the power can help, okay. So if you look at it again, simple, straight up, from here down, make sure the upper arm stays perpendicular to the floor, okay. So this part is straight, down, up. Now what's not to be done? This, a common mistake people do, okay, elbow goes out. You end up doing this. What does this do? This will end up putting a lot of unnecessary tension and load on your elbow tendons, okay, unnecessary, doesn't benefit anybody, okay. So wrong technique with this, just because you're taking heavy weights and doing this, not worth. In fact, this almost becomes a mix of a shoulder press, because look where my elbow is. I could end up doing it like this, okay, especially with very heavy weights. Assuming this is, let's say now, some 30 kilos, what would I do? I would go here and up, not worth. If you're doing it double arm, engage your core, down, up, okay. So by now, some of the major exercises have been done. You definitely now know what's the difference between a barbell. A barbell allows you to carry more load together, but at the same time the drawback is it doesn't allow you to do movements independently. At the same time, it doesn't allow you to do coordinated movements, okay. There is coordination of some sort, but it's both together producing same force. In sport, obviously you know that force is never produced together. You don't do any action where you're going to punch with both arms or both legs. Even if you do a jump, there's one leg that has the takeoff effect, but there's always one which is at the end, okay. And there's always twisting, whether it's boxing, whether it's a badminton stroke, whether it's a tennis serve, you go up, you serve, okay. So all these movements are a mix of various things, but there is multiplanar movement, okay. The planes of movement are different. So by now you should have understood all this and hopefully gotten the best info that you sort of need. So far some of the basics are cleared. We will be moving next to the aspect of using machines and how they are different compared to weight training. Thank you.